Welcome to the CBS Sports College Football Channel. I'm Andrew Ivins, joined by my guys, Blair Angulo, Tom Loy. We are breaking down Oregon's recruiting class in advance of signing day. Guys, Oregon, pound for pound, one of the strongest groups out there. 3 5-stars in the boat. Dan Lanning, we know he's not done. He's got the cigars, always as a closer. Blair, I'm going to start with you. Give me a ready-to-play player in this recruiting class.
Andrew, speaking of closers, I like Jet Washington in this class, the nephew of the late Kobe Bryant, a player that is very versatile, a former wide receiver who's turned into the defensive stalwart that he is at Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas. He hits the jackpot anytime he's on the field, Andrew. I love his ability to attack the football. He's really nifty. He's about 6'5", 200 pounds, and the way he just attacks the line of scrimmage and run support, gets me really excited about what he's going to be able to do in that Ducks defense. I think he's a really impressive and talented safety who has maybe a body type that's going to allow him to maybe move closer to the box, closer to the line of scrimmage. He can cover. He's got the hand-eye coordination and those ball skills with his background as a receiver. Also a basketball player, so he's really fluid in his movements. I think the world of what Jet Washington's going to be able to do in Eugene.
I was thinking about Jet Washington, but I figured you had him handled, Blair. I'm going to go with the freak show receiver, Jalen Lott, a guy I'm a huge fan of. I mean, I remember talking to Hudson Standish, Gabe Brooks, Mike Roach. Those guys have raved about him for years. This is a tremendous athlete, a two-way guy, comes from a family of high-level athletes, elite football player. There's some Decorian more in this kid, so that's how excited I am and high on him that I am, but they need to hold on to him. But I do know, because there's a lot of schools coming after him still down the stretch here with signing day. But talking to sources at Oregon, they feel great. They feel like this last trip to Eugene really buttoned it up. And again, this is a day one guy. I think this is the guy in Oregon's class that when you're looking for a future star receiver to pair alongside Decorian Moore, it's Jalen Lott.
Man, usually this is kind of a hard question to answer because Oregon hasn't leaned on the true freshman. That is not the case in 2025. We've seen some of these young pups get on the field and make some plays. Guys, I've never done this before. I'm going to go with a tight end here. Right? Kendra Harrison, he's a modern giant at that position. He looks like an offensive tackle playing tight end. He could be a sixth lineman. He is like a Martellus Bennett. He is like a Darnell Washington. And Kenyon Sadiq is going to be on a lot of people's fantasy football teams this time next year. He's a future pro, likely a first-round pick. So, there is going to be a void. Someone is going to have to step in. And Kendra Harrison, I mean, he's a guy we heavily considered for that fifth star. Just a freak athlete out of the state of North Carolina. Also going to play some basketball for the Ducks there. He has shattered 3 backboards throughout his career. So a big fan of him. I think situationally, they're going to find a role for him. That's what Dan Lanning, that's what that coaching staff does. Tom, at one time, it looked like Jared Curtis was headed to Eugene. Then we heard the Ryder Lions. He's going to be an Oregon Duck, but that's not the quarterback in the class. It is Bryson Beaver, a Elite 11 finalist, former Boise State commit. Just take us behind the scenes. What does this mean for the quarterback room, and how did they settle on him?
Yeah, I'll let Blair kind of talk about the recruitment a little bit because the whole backstory and what led him there. I know that's his expertise, especially with him being one of his guys, with him and Brandon Huffman doing a great job out there. But look, Bryson Beaver, I've only had one exposure to him live. It was at the Elite 11 finals, and he very much looked the part. He fit right in amongst the best of the best. So personally, just being completely transparent, I would have had him toward the bottom of the group of the Elite 11 finalists. But again, we're talking about the best on best. So it doesn't mean he's not super talented because it's exactly what he's bringing to Eugene. So the best thing about him, he's not expected to be an early contributor for Oregon. He'll be a slow burn, which is a good thing. I think he broke his hand, if I remember correctly, earlier this year. So again, he's going to enroll early. He's going to get into the playbook. He's going to be back on schedule eventually. But again, a lot to like here with Bryson Beaver. I know talking to some Oregon people just a couple of days ago, very excited about him. They said, sure, we would have loved to have Ryder Lyons if he wanted. We would have loved to have Jared Curtis, but we are thrilled to have Bryson Beaver.
Yeah, his recruitment really took off during the spring evaluation period. He was committed to Boise State early on. I think obviously he's an example of that late evaluation mattering, especially at the quarterback position. You know, I went out to his spring showcase and you had Ohio State up in the stands, Arizona, Utah, a number of other national programs were out there to check up on him. A couple days later, he goes to the Redlands Mega Camp out in the Inland Empire in Southern California, and he throws in front of Will Stein, lands the offer. The rest is history. He ends up flipping to the Ducks, and you know he did have that week in at the Elite 11 finals. Maybe not the best week for him, but I think he's still getting better. He's still progressing. This is a player that back in February, guys, I was at a 7-on-7 tournament. You guys go to these events. There are teams that have B teams or C teams. He was splitting reps on the B team for a decent 7-on-7 organization. So, you know, this is, I think, a late bloomer, a player that's going to go in there to Eugene. You know, despite the fact that he's going to have Beaver on the back of his jersey, I think Ducks fans are going to be pretty happy with him.
A perfect NIL opportunity there. I'm a Bryson Beaver guy. You know, just when kind of spinning this forward to what does it mean for Oregon, I think we need to bring up the fact that, you know, Dan Lanning hasn't been afraid to go into the transfer portal to get the quarterback of the future. I mean, you look at Dante Moore there, and that's not a knock on Bryson Beaver. That's not a knock on Austin Novosad, who is there. But Oregon is going to be attractive to whoever. I think Bryson Beaver is a guy that's going to need a redshirt year. He might need 2 or 3 redshirt years, but there are certainly tools to mold for the long haul. He is mobile. He can make all the throws. So makes sense for Oregon as they kind of put this recruiting class together. Tom, give me maybe an underrated player in this class, an unsung hero of sorts.
This was really easy for me, and it's 4-star safety Xavier Larice. I remember being with you, Andrew, in Fort Lauderdale at the OT7 finals, and Larice was just making play after play. I mean, I'm a big fan of this kid. He's not going to blow you away with the size. I mean, he's 5'10", 185 pounds, and that might be a little generous. But again, absolute playmaker in the secondary, a team-first guy, all in with Oregon. I was told he's already taking accountability, preparing like he's currently on the team, doing all of the right things to ensure that he's an early contributor. I think much earlier than I would say the casual Oregon fans expect at Xavier Larice. So again, big time pickup. I really like this kid.
For me, the unsung hero in this class has to be Prince Tavazon. Remember, this is a player who reclassified from the 2027 cycle up to 2026. So maybe we're forgetting about him and how big of a pickup that was in the junior class for the Ducks. I love his relentless motor. I love his multifaceted skill set. He's a pass rusher who can get after the quarterback and make plays in the backfield. I think he's got a vast tool set in that sense, but I also think he's really capable in run support. And when you think about a Dan Lanning defense and what those defenders up front in the trenches have to do, whether they're containing gaps or sealing the edge or kind of wiggling free and making plays in the run game, I think Prince Tavazon will be primed to do that at some point. Remember, he is a reclass, so I think it's going to take him some time to redefine his body, make sure he's physically ready for the rigors of the Big Ten. But I'm really high on his upside and his potential there in Eugene.
Love both of those picks from you guys. I'm going to go off script here. I had Xavier as well, Tom. One of the best players in the state of Florida, right? Like hard nose. I think he fits what Dan Lanning wants to do. 20 career interceptions, 5 special teams touchdowns. He's ran for 1,200 yards this year. He is a mighty might. And I think when I watch Oregon, they got a ton of these individuals flying around on the defensive side of the ball. The guy I want to highlight, Tony Cumberland, defensive lineman, originally from Arizona, now in Willamette there in the Valley. He's kind of been this like Yeti for us. We've never really had much exposure to him ever since he changed schools. Former basketball-focused athlete. I thought when we got into his senior tape, it was like, whoa, okay, this is the guy we fell in love with back when he was a young pup. Got to get the body right, but I think Oregon's very excited about Tony Cumberland and what he brings to the equation there. And I think he's one where it might not be next season, but 2-3 years down the line, Tony Cumberland is going to allow them to move the line of scrimmage there in the Big Ten. Finally, what's like a big picture takeaway you guys have on this class? I mentioned pound for pound, one of the best out there. Blair, I'll start with you.
Drew, for me, it's got to be the decommitments in this class, and maybe insert brain explosion emoji here, because they've had 5 in the top 150 decommit in this class, and they still rank 5th nationally. Cody Green, Richard Wesley, Tom Topui, Jonas Williams, who's headed to USC, Bot Mulitalo, who they kind of lost a bidding war to hometown BYU. It's remarkable, guys, that not only did they lose decommitments and they obviously had a lot of quality leave this class, they're still able to kind of maneuver and work their way and make sure that they're still able to replace some of those players with quality players. I think it just kind of speaks to what Dan Lanning is doing there in Eugene. It's a well-oiled machine from a recruiting standpoint, and if you're the Ducks fans out there looking at early commitments, even when you lose them, you're still going to end up with a really nice class. So it must be nice to be a Ducks fan these days.
I would go with the fact that the bottom of the class is as strong as complete as the top of the class. And I'm not saying they're the same players, but I'm just so impressed by looking at the top to the bottom. It was a challenge for me to look at the biggest and the most underrated guy between like Xavier Larice or I love Dutch Horace. Like there's so many guys even at the bottom tier of the class, and you're going through the page, like that bottom half is so impressive. So again, love the top, headlined by Anthony Tank Jones, 5-star edge rusher. You got 5-star safety Jet Washington, who Blair talked about earlier, Emmanuel Iheanacho, 5-star offensive lineman. Again, loaded at the top, but I'm just really, really impressed by the early evals, the job by Dan Lanning and his staff to find those hidden gems and really find guys that are potentially difference makers at the next level.
To me, guys, this class signals like they have fully embraced life in the Big Ten. And when I look at the group and when I watch the group and when I write up the group, my mind keeps going point of attack focused program. I mean, they have size across the board. We talked about Jet Washington, 6'5", 215 pounds. Anthony Tank Jones, he's one of my favorites in this class, and it's taken us, 8 minutes to get to him. He might be the closest thing to Reuben Bain, dense edge rusher, can rush, crush, close there on the corner. Manny Iheanacho, 5-star offensive lineman. Tommy Tofi, both those guys are 6'6", 350 pounds. I mean, you plug them in there in the Big Ten, they're going to move people. You also got Kendre Harrison, 6'6", 250 pounds. The safeties are big as well. Devin Jackson there in Orlando, you look at him, he's 6'3", 200 pounds. So this group to me is built to play in the rain at Iowa. They're built to play in the snow at Illinois. Like, Oregon has figured that out. So kudos to Dan Lanning and his staff. We'll see still lots of pieces in play. And again, Dan Lanning, he loves to light up that cigar. Should be a fun signing day for the Ducks.